A secret line of code inside Honda's 2026 power unit just triggered a full-scale FIA investigation, and Aston Martin may be the first team to pay the price. Why would a battery system, approved by the rulebook, generate illegal acceleration in simulation but remain undetectable on FIA sensors? You're about to uncover how this hidden override function might have given Aston Martin a massive head start and why that advantage could now get wiped from the grid entirely. And here's the twist: if the FIA confirms this data breach, Honda's most advanced engine may be banned before it even touches the track. When the FIA flagged the Honda 2026 power unit, it wasn't because of horsepower, fuel flow, or turbo efficiency. It was because of the data. More specifically, the data didn't add up. The energy deployment logs submitted by Honda during early bench tests showed clean, regulation-compliant performance, but when those figures were compared to real-time acceleration data in private simulations, the numbers told a different story. The Aston Martin prototype was accelerating out of slow corners faster than its declared output should allow. That's when alarm bells went off in Geneva. The FIA ordered a deep audit of Honda's ERS data chain, and what they've reportedly found could detonate the most explosive technical scandal Formula One has seen in years. At the center of the controversy is a rumored override loop embedded within Honda's energy recovery software. This loop, never officially documented, allegedly allows for momentary surges in electrical deployment without registering as a spike in the power unit's legal output. It's done through a combination of ultra-low resistance cell architecture and a split mapping strategy that temporarily bypasses conventional power smoothing algorithms. In plain English, the system delivers illegal acceleration without looking illegal to the sensors. The brilliance of the design is that it exploits a gray area between battery discharge behavior and software-defined power output. But that gray area may now be closing fast. What makes this even more volatile is how central this override system is to Aston Martin's 2026 design. According to internal sources, Adrian Newey's chassis concept was specifically built to take advantage of this energy behavior. The aerodynamic load profile, weight distribution, and even cooling architecture were optimized around short, punchy electric bursts that the car could depend on exiting critical traction zones. That means this isn't just a clever cheat. It's a foundational element of the car's racecraft philosophy. If the FIA rules the override illegal, the team won't just lose a feature, they'll have to tear down the entire concept and start again. This puts Aston Martin in a catastrophic position. Honda's power unit was supposed to be the team's golden ticket, its defining advantage in a post-Red Bull era. But now, that advantage may become an anchor. If the FIA demands changes, Honda will need to rewrite the software, revalidate the hardware, and possibly reconfigure its battery architecture entirely. That process could take months, time Aston Martin does not have. With 2026 pre-season testing looming, every hour spent revising the engine is an hour not spent refining the chassis. And every delay puts them one step behind Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari, who are already deep into their own programs. And don't forget the political pressure. The FIA knows it's walking a tightrope. If they hammer Honda too hard, they risk alienating a manufacturer that just returned to the sport with full works investment. But if they go soft, they risk opening the floodgates to a new generation of loophole-driven engineering battles that could destroy the spirit of the cost cap era. Other teams are already watching closely. Ferrari has reportedly asked for access to test logs. Mercedes has requested clarification on override definitions. And Red Bull? They've been eerily silent, perhaps because they recognize the override strategy from their own Honda years. But make no mistake, the paddock smells blood. Back at Honda's R&D center, internal reports suggest a quiet scramble has begun. Engineers are reviewing every line of code, every performance mode, every thermal spike. The problem isn't just legal, it's reputational. This was supposed to be Honda's clean return, a showcase of reliability and innovation. Now, they risk being branded as deceptive, even if they technically stayed within the lines. And if the override system is ruled legal but outlawed going forward, they'll still lose the edge. Aston Martin would be forced to detune the car, reconfigure race strategies, and abandon the very advantage they spent 2 years developing. All of this leads to one unavoidable question: was this brilliance or betrayal? Did Honda find a clever exploit in an unfinished rulebook, or did they knowingly build a weapon that undermines fair competition? And more importantly, can Aston Martin survive if they're forced to compete without it? Because if the FIA rules against them, this won't just be a setback. It will be a complete structural failure of their 2026 campaign and perhaps the biggest missed opportunity in the team's modern history. Within Aston Martin, the mood has shifted from aggressive confidence to quiet desperation. Every department from race engineering to legal is now on high alert. The override system wasn't just a clever trick buried in the code, it was a competitive cornerstone. The car's traction philosophy, throttle maps, and corner exit strategy were all modeled with the override as a permanent feature. If the FIA rules it illegal, that invalidates a full year of R&D. And the team knows it. Engineers who were once pushing for weight savings and aero efficiency are now being reassigned to emergency powertrain contingency planning. There's a growing sense that Aston Martin might not just lose an advantage, they could lose their identity as a serious 2026 title threat. The worst part is the public still doesn't know the full story. On the surface, Aston Martin is playing it cool, no statements, no press leaks, no defensive posture. But behind closed doors, they're already weighing the nuclear options. One internal proposal reportedly includes reaching out to Mercedes for a contingency engine deal, despite the political disaster that would create. Another option, even more drastic, involves freezing the current 2026 car entirely and starting a second concept from scratch just in case the override ban guts their current plan. These are not small changes. These are survival tactics. And the fact that they're even on the table tells you how serious the situation really is. Meanwhile, Honda finds itself trapped in a paradox of its own making. Their engineers insist that the override function was designed to stay within the rulebook's literal boundaries, and to this day, no formal rule explicitly bans the energy behavior they've implemented. But here's the catch: intent is becoming just as important as interpretation. The FIA's latest directive emphasizes that the spirit of the regulations, a vague but powerful clause that allows the governing body to retroactively declare something illegal if it undermines fairness. And Honda's override strategy, while brilliant, fits that exact gray area. If the FIA enforces the spirit over the letter, Honda is finished. The political blowback could be enormous. Japanese manufacturers, especially ones like Honda with deep cultural roots in precision and honor, do not take public embarrassment lightly. If the FIA effectively brands their system as deceptive, even without using the word illegal, Honda may reconsider its long-term F1 involvement. That's the nightmare scenario, a power unit war ending not in a technical defeat, but in reputational collapse. And that's exactly what the FIA doesn't want. Losing Honda, especially after the pain of losing Renault and BMW as full works participants years ago, would undermine the entire narrative of F1's hybrid-era resurgence. While this storm brews, rival teams are sharpening their knives. Ferrari has already deployed analysts to trace Aston Martin's acceleration profiles from winter sim data, and they're expected to present comparative anomalies at the next technical working group meeting. Mercedes has requested a review of override-related telemetry standards, knowing full well that any change will impact Honda disproportionately. Red Bull, interestingly, has remained silent, perhaps calculating that if Aston Martin implodes, it removes a serious threat from their path. Every team understands what's at stake. If Aston Martin's design is deemed illegal, it resets the 2026 pecking order, and no one wants to miss that opportunity. Adrian Newey, for his part, remains silent. But make no mistake, he's watching everything. Insiders say he's already begun drawing up fallback aero plans, just in case the engine layout needs to change. That speaks volumes. Newey doesn't waste time on hypotheticals unless they're necessary. If he's preparing for an override ban, it means he believes it's likely. And that's bad news for Aston Martin. Because while Newey can adapt, adaptivity takes time, and time is the one thing this team doesn't have. Every day lost to uncertainty pushes Aston Martin further behind in a development war where even a one-week delay can snowball into race day disaster. All of this brings us to the quiet, unspoken truth now echoing through the paddock: Aston Martin may have overplayed their hand. They chased a genius-level loophole. They built around it. They optimized it. But they forgot one thing: Formula One doesn't reward brilliance that embarrasses the system. It punishes it. And now the very thing that was meant to make them unbeatable could become their undoing. The override wasn't just a risk. It was a gamble. And with the FIA circling, the rivals closing in, and their power unit under siege, Aston Martin is about to learn the cost of betting everything on one hidden line of code.